Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the mathematics class. The topic we are going to discuss today is logarithm of numbers less than 1. In the previous class, that is during the SS1 class, we were introduced to the concept of logarithm. And the aspect of logarithm we were taught then was the logarithm of numbers greater than 1. So that is the type of logarithm that is of this form. That is, the first digit is going to be a whole number. The first digit is going to be a counting number, or what we can call the natural number. But in the situation whereby the number given is 0, when the set of number given begins with 0, that is what we mean by logarithm of numbers less than 1. For instance, if I am asked to find log 0.00125, so this one is going to be termed the logarithms of number less than 1 due to one fact. The fact is that what? The number we have here begins with what? With 0. And the first thing that is of importance whenever we are dealing with logarithm is how do we determine the characteristic? Just like we know, the characteristics involve the movement of points, and it also it has a lot to do with the digits given in the number which we are talking about. For instance, let us find logarithm of the following. Logarithm of the following. Number 1, log 0.00125. Number 2, log 0.817, and number 3, log 0.1115. Now what we want to learn at the moment now is not exactly finding the logarithm, but how to determine the characteristic of this logarithm. So that is the first aim of this class. So we want to learn at the moment how to determine the characteristic of any number. So under the solution, in number 1, I have log 0.00125. Its characteristic is going to be done this way. Now we see that the number given here is 0.00125. So we can see that the very first number we can see in this case is 0. So any situation whereby the first number given is 0 is what we termed logarithm of numbers less than 1. In that wise, this is not going to be treated as the first digit in the number which we are given here. Rather, what would be the first digit here is the first natural number or the first counting number which we have here. And we can see that the first counting number in this case is what? Is 1. Second counting number is 2. Third counting number is what? 5. So for us to be able to determine the characteristic of this number, now we are going to treat this one here as the first digit, while this 2 is going to be treated as the second digit. And what we want to achieve with the idea of first digit and second digit is that it is between this first digit and second digit these are decimal points must be moved to. This is where we want the decimal point to be by standard. So in how many ways do we now have to move it from here to here? So that is the essence of what? Determining the characteristic. Now we observe that this thing begins with 0. So it means the characteristics this thing is going to have is going to be a negative characteristic. And representation of negative number in logarithm is what we call bar. Instead of calling it -1, we will call it bar 1. Instead of saying minus 5, we are going to call it bar 5. So I know quite alright now that my characteristic is a negative 1 because the number I have here begins with what? With 0. So characteristic will first of all carry a negative sign, or what we can translate to mean what? Bar. Now the next aspect of this thing is we want this decimal point to be between the first digit and second digit. And remember, I've explained the reason why this 1 is going to be treated as the first digit and 2 is going to be treated as second digit, and rather not this and this. So in how many times do I move it from here to this place? So that can be achieved by moving it this way. 1, 2, 3. So in this case, we can see the characteristics result is 3. So looking for the table, looking for the logarithm of this number is actually not what we are interested in at the moment. But what we are interested in is how do we determine the characteristic of the number which we have here. So in number 2, I have log 0.817. So I'm also interested in finding the characteristic of this number. Now, getting the characteristic, we need to know the nature of this number. Is it a number greater than 1 or a number less than 1? A number greater than 1 usually have what? A positive characteristic, while a number less than 1 always have what? A negative characteristic. So we can see this thing. The first number given here is 0. So 0 is not a counting number. So this is a case of number less than 1. Therefore, our characteristic must be a negative number. That is, it will carry a bar. Now then the next thing is the position. Now once we know this is a case of number less than 1, this 8 will rather be treated as the first digit and 1 being our second digit. So what this now means is the decimal point needs to reside between this first digit and the second digit. And in how many ways can that movement be carried out? The number of ways in which it can be carried out is what we call the characteristic. And we can see to move here means we move once. Let me do that again. We move once. So the characteristic here is bar 1. Point. What we have after point are what? The equivalents of this thing from the 4-figure table. But I'm not interested in doing that because we've done this thing in SS1 class. So we are all aware of how to look up for the value of 81 under 7 from the 4-figure table. So I will now have to move to the third one. So in the third case, I have log 0.1115. So in this case as well, one will observe very well that this thing begins with 0. So any number that begins with 0 will always carry what? A negative characteristic. So that is the reason why the bar is there. Then the next thing is, what is that going to? Now we said this 0 is not going to be treated as the first digit. Then what is that going to be treated as the first digit in this number? What is to be treated as the first digit is the first counting number we have here, which is what? This 1. So the one that followed it is going to be treated as the second digit. And what we want to achieve is that I want the decimal point to be between the first digit and second digit. In how many ways can that be achieved? So that can be only done once. So it means the characteristic here is as well bar 1. Then 0.11 under 1 difference 5. The result it gives is what we are going to write after the decimal point. That is the first thing we want to learn under the logarithm of numbers less than 1. The next thing we need to know is how do we add, subtract, multiply, and divide. But the case of multiply is not that much an issue, rather than the case of subtracting as well as multiplying as well as dividing. So now the next set of examples we are going to talk about is going to center on these areas. So we take another example. Example 2. Simplify the following. 1. bar 4.3 plus bar 2.4. Number 2, bar 2.4 plus bar 2.4. Number 3, bar 4.3 minus 4.7. Number 4, bar 2.4 minus 3.7. Number 5, bar 3.7 minus bar 4.8. Number 5, bar 2.4 divided by 4. Number 6, bar 2.4 divided by 3. So solutions. So for my solution, I will need a small corner here for my workings. So number 1, what I have there is bar 4.3 plus bar 2.4. We are asked to add in this case. So 3 plus 4 here gives 7. Bar 4 plus minus 2 is the same thing as saying minus 4 plus minus 2. So that can be done here. Minus 4 plus minus 2. So that's the same thing as minus 4. Plus times minus, 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 then 2. So what is minus 4 minus 6? That gives minus 4 minus 2. That gives what? Minus 6. So the result here is going to be bar 6.7. In number 2, bar 2.4 plus bar 2.4. So adding this one is as well simple. 4 plus 4 is what? 8. Minus 2 plus minus 2. Minus 2 plus minus 2. So that becomes minus 2 plus times minus minus 2. Minus 2 minus 2 gives minus 4, which is what we are going to refer to as bar 4. In number 3, I have bar 4.3. Now, I would rather do this in the next page. In the next page. Number 3. What I have there is bar 4.3 minus 4.7. Now, 3 minus 7, we can see it is not possible. So what we rather do here is we run to this number to borrow 1. But we can see it is negative 4. So when we borrow 1 from it, the number will become minus 5. Just like it happened in the positive number. We can see this in the case of negative number. Also, in the case of a positive number, suppose this number is 2. If we borrow 1 from it, we know the number will reduce. So anytime we borrow from number here, the number will reduce. So when we borrow 1 from minus 4, it will become minus 5. So when the 1 gets here, this becomes what? 13, because it's a base 10 number. So 13 minus 7 here gives what? 6. Then the point here, so remember this is no more minus 4 but minus 5. So what we are going to do here now is what? Minus 4 minus the number here. Minus 4 minus 4. You know that is going to give minus 8, which is what we can call bar 8. That is number 3. In number 4, we have bar 2.4 minus 3.7. We also have to subtract. In this case, we can see 4 minus 7 is not possible as well. We also run to this number to borrow 1. So when the 1 gets here, this is 14. And 14 minus 7 is 7.10. Now here, this is minus 2. When we borrowed 1 from it, this number is going to reduce. It is going to reduce. So when this number reduced, it's going to become minus 3. Or for one to really understand this concept of reduction very well, let's talk a little bit, branch a little bit into what we call the number line. Suppose this is the origin of the number line. Why this is the positive 1 and this is the positive 2. Leftward this is minus 1 and this is what? My minus 2. To reduce any number here, now let me do the positive side first. To increase this 1 here means to move rightward. That is the meaning of what? Increasing any number. So if I have to increase this 1, and remember this is case of whole number. So when we increase this number, it will jump from here to the nearest whole number. So if this 1 is increased, the meaning it have is that what? This thing becomes, it jump from here to this place. That is, this thing moves rightward. And when this thing moves rightward, the result that gives is what? Plus 2. Now let's treat the case of minus, the negative side of it. Now to reduce anything means to move leftward. We can see this is the origin. This is my right hand, while this is my left hand. Any movement to the left, any movement towards this side is what we call reducing, and any movement towards this side is what we call increasing. Now when we borrow 1 from any number, the effect it has on such a number is that such number is going to reduce by what? By 1. So if I borrow 1 from minus 1 for instance, now this number will reduce. To reduce it means we move it from here leftward, and we can see it's going to become minus 2. That concept is what we are going to apply here. Now when we borrowed 1 here, the effect of it is this thing will move from minus 2 leftward, and we know the number we are going to have after minus 2 is going to be what? Minus 3. So this number becomes minus 3 in this case. So minus 3 here is what we want to do here. So minus 3 minus the number which I have here, which is 3. We know that is going to give minus 6. So our result here is going to be what? Bar 6.7. In number 5, there I have bar 2.4 divided by 3. Divided by 3. To divide here, what we are going to do is this. Division has two phases. The first phase is that division may be possible, and the second phase of it is that division may not be possible. For it to be possible means this number will be able to divide this number without leaving any remainder. That is, this one here must be a number with which this one can divide exactly without any remainder. Now we are going to reason that way only in the case of a negative number. But if it is a positive number, once the division is not possible, we are going to call it 0 and rather move the number to the nearest number. Now let us see this. How many 3 can I get in 2? We can see that is not possible. But we can see it is not possible, and we are not allowed to call it 0. That is the reason why what we have here, we have to adjust it. So it is after, once it is not possible, then it must be possible compulsorily. Then the way to make it possible is that we have to adjust this number. Now the way to adjust this is this. So to adjust it means I'm going to make this number, this bar 2, the nearest number that will be able to divide 3 without leaving any remainder. And the next number after 2 that can divide 3, the next number that this thing can become that will be able to divide this 3 is going to be 3. So I will force this number to become 3. So when this thing becomes 3, I will call it bar 3. But in the real sense of it, the number here is not bar 3, it is actually bar 2. That is, it is actually minus 2. How do I make minus 3 to become minus 2 again? That is by adding to it 1. Remember, making it minus 2 is like I'm increasing it. So to increase it is to add 1 to it. Then 0.4. Now divided by what? By 3 as given here. Now let us see the division now. Now division always starts from the what? From the front. So how many 3 can I get in 3 now? We can see the case is possible now. That's going to be bar 1 plus how many 3 can I get in one? We can see this is a positive number. Any impossibility here, we will call it 0. So 3 in 1 here is not possible. So we're going to call it what? 0. And what we rather do is we move this one from here to this place, making 14. So how many 3 can we get in 14? We know that is 4 with the remainder of 2. So what will happen to that 2 is that I will fix 0 to it at the back, making 20. How many 3 can I get in 20? That is 6. So finally, the result is can now be written as bar 1.46 here. I can round it up to making the number, and I can call it bar 1.5. That is number 5. In number 6, what I have there is bar 2.4 divided by 3. Bar 2.4 divided by 3. This is what I have here. So I can see this is a negative number. Once this number is not able to divide this, that is, if the division is going to leave a remainder, or if the division is not possible, so I will not call it 0, and I will not move it to the next number, but I will have to adjust this number compulsorily. It is compulsion. We must adjust it. So to adjust it, we make it the next number after 2 on the number line that can divide 3. And we know the next number after 2 is going to be what? 3. So that's going to be bar 3. But actually, this number is not minus 3. It is minus 2. How do I now make it minus 2? That is by increasing it by what? 1. So that's going to be plus 1.4. Then divided by what? The 3 as I have it there. So 3 in bar 3 gives bar 1, plus 3 in 1 is not possible. But this is because this is a positive number, I will call the impossibility there 0. I will now have to move this number to this place, making 14. 3 in 14 here gives what? 4. So with the remainder of 2, I will fix 2 to it at the back. And 3 in 20 here is going to be what? 6. So my result is now going to be written as bar 1.5. So that is that on how to add, how to subtract, and how to divide any number. Now the next thing is, how do we now apply this thing into solving our logarithm? So as a result of that, we are going to take a question. Now, example 3. Evaluate 0.0125 multiplied by 0.8852, using logarithm table. So doing this will require expressing it this way: number log if the situation will require also making use of additional column. So the first number I have is 0.0125, while the second number is 0.8825. And what we are going to do first is to determine the characteristic. So the characteristic here is going to be a negative 1, because this thing, we have the first number being what? 0. It's going to be negative number. And to be a negative number. So, and the number is now going to be what? The result we get when we move this point between this place and from this place to between the first digit and second digit. And remember, first digit in this case is going to be treated as 1, while the second digit is going to be treated as 2. And when this decimal point will be between the first digit and second digit. So in how many ways can that be done? That is 1, 2. So the characteristic here is going to be bar 2 point whatever value we are going to get from our table. Then the next one here, we also need to determine the characteristic. We can see the first number given here is 0. So it automatically shows that what? The characteristic is also going to be a negative number. So that's going to be bar. Now, in how many ways? Now, then the next thing is the decimal point which you are having here. Now, no, before that, then the next thing is Since we say this is not qualified to be the first digit, automatically what will be the first digit is the first counting number we have here. So the first counting number we have here is 8, while the number following is the second digit. So what we want to do now is that we want the decimal point to be between the first digit and second digit. So in how many ways can this thing be moved to this place? Just like we know that the middle of 8, this first digit and second digit. So in how many ways can I move this point from here to here? And that can be done only in one way. So characteristic here is going to be by 1 point. So we can now make use of the 4-figure table in order to complete the result. So what I am to check in this case is 12 under 5. So I'm by my table. This is 12. Under 5 is 0969. So that is going to be written as 0969. To be followed by this one, 88 under 2 difference 5. And by my table, 88 under 2 is this 9455. Let me have that here, 9455. 88 under 2 with the difference of 5. 88 under 2, difference of 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one is 2 as well. So I will place my 2 here. So when added, I have 7, 5, 4, and 9. So that's going to be 9, 4, 5, 7. And between the first number given here and the second number here is multiplication sign. And by the rule of logarithm, multiplication always changes its row to what? To that of addition. So that means we have to add the first digit to add the result here and the result here. Adding them is this 9 plus 7, 16. 6 will be written there. We'll move the 1 here. So making 1 plus 6, 7 plus 5, 12, 2. So we have 1 left. It will be moved there as well. 1 plus 9, 10 plus 4, 14. So I will write what remains 1, which will also move to this place. So 1 plus 0 plus 9 gives 10. I will write 0. So the remaining one will also be moved there. So this will now become, now remember we are adding. So it's going to be 1 plus minus 2 plus minus 1. So that can be done here. 1 plus minus 2 plus minus 1, which is 1. Plus times minus gives minus 2. Plus times minus minus 1. So and this is what? 1 minus 2. That gives the result of 1 minus 2 gives minus 1. Together with this minus 1. Then minus 1 means we give what? Minus 2. So this will now be bar 2. So we are almost done. So to round up with this thing now is to look up for the antilog of this number. So that can be done here by saying that antilog of the number here. So the result it gives can be here. We can write that one anywhere. Then to determine the antilog is to consider every number we have after the decimal point. So from the table of antilog, we are going to look up for 0.04 under 2 difference 6. And by my antilog table here, 0.04 is this under 2, that is 1102 with the difference of 6. Difference of 6 is 2. That is 2. Then I will add them together. 2 plus 2 here for 011. That gives what? 1104. Now to conclude the result here, in order to get the final answer is to also consider this number here. Now this thing we have here, the way we treat it, if it's a case of a positive number, is different from how we treat it under the negative number. So to treat it under the negative case is this. Now this is bar 2. What it means is the number I have here should be written as a negative number. Should be written as a number less than 1. And remember in logarithm, any number less than 1 or logarithm of any number less than 1 is such a number that must begin with some 0. But in this case, we have bar 2. It means this thing has to begin with 2, 0. So it means I'm going to now write 0, 0. And the decimal point needs to be there. Has to be between the first and the second 0. In case of multiple 0. But in case of only one 0, then the decimal point will have to be between 0 and the next number. So the decimal point is going to be here. And this is a complete solution to the question we required us to evaluate 0.0125 times 0.8852. So when that is multiplied using the logarithm table, the result which we are going to arrive at is 0.01104. Now, to conclude this class, we also have to solve one more question. Example 4. Evaluate (4.923) divided by 82.61. So solving this one, the solution, so number log. So the first number I have is 4.923 and the second number I have is 82.61. So we can see this is the case of logarithm of number greater than 1. Why? Because the first number here is not 0, or because the first digit I have here is what? Is a counting number. So the characteristic is not going to carry a negative bar. Now the next thing we want to do is the movement of the now we need to know that decimal point has to be between the first digit and the second digit. And when we look at this thing very well, we are going to see that no movement of point is required there because the decimal point is already where it is expected to be. So we say the characteristic here is going to be 0. And in this case too, we can see this is also a case of a number greater than 1. Why? Because the first digit we see here is a counting number. That is, it is a non-zero. So which means the characteristic is not going to be a negative 1, or the characteristic is not going to carry a bar. Now what we want to achieve here is that we want